The Cleveland Browns got lucky to get Shedeur Sanders, and now they must take advantage and start him week 1. I'll explain on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso, with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the mastermind, Ross Jackson. On today's episode, we're going to get more information from Ross about the Saints quarterback situation and some other quarterbacks who are rookies who we think might get to play, like Tyler Shough looks like he's going to get to play. We'll talk about Cam Ward versus Will Levis for real. I'll give you the inside scoop there, and we're going to start with the Browns and Shedeur Sanders, who I will continue to say needs to be the starting quarterback for the Browns this year. Before we get into all of it, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And the NBA playoffs are happening right now, folks, and they are insane. So it'd be a good place to start with FanDuel. But with that being said, Ross, I'm going to continue to pound the drum throughout the summer. And I know that the Browns are probably going to do anything that they possibly can to avoid this, because it will bring more media attention, and they may not be a very good team regardless. But there is no way that they can start Joe Flacco or Dillon Gabriel or Kenny Pickett over Shedeur Sanders. At the end of the day, he got drafted way lower than what his talent is worth. Maybe the first round was more than what his talent was worth, but fifth round, close to the sixth, that's ridiculous for what Shedeur Sanders put on tape at the end of the day. So I get it's the other stuff, but you have been given a lotto ticket with a higher probability than any scratch-off you've ever had. You have to scratch that thing now, not let it fall to the bottom of your floorboard.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, the Dillon Gabriel selection was one of the most egregious, ridiculous things that I've seen in the NFL draft in comparison and relative to the later Shedeur Sanders selection, where clearly some owner walked in and went, hey, this is weird. Why isn't that guy on our team yet? And it feels a lot like you went grocery shopping, or really not even grocery shopping. You went car shopping and you had the Maserati in front of you, but you're a little afraid of it. You're not sure if you can handle it. So you went and bought the Pinto instead. And so you drafted Dillon Gabriel. And then somebody came back and said, no, dude, go and get the Maserati. So then they went and got the Maserati. Now don't let that Maserati sit in the garage. There's no reason to hold him back. This is a guy that was going to be, could have been drafted number 2 overall and would have been an absolute shoe-in to be the week 1 starter. No one would have even batted an eye. Now that he's fallen all the way down to the 5th round because people can't handle their emotions in the NFL draft, apparently, now all of a sudden he's the guy that can't be a starter in the NFL. Please, I'm over it. He should be the week 1 starter. He certainly should be a year 1 starter at the very least.
Yes.
Like if you genuinely see like, hey, he needs a little bit more time, fine. But don't start Dillon Gabriel over him. Don't start Kenny Pickett over him. Joe Flacco is the only other option, and that's a very, very brief stint until Shedeur Sanders should be out on that field.
Yeah, like a month of Joe Flacco before you hand off to Shedeur Sanders. I will retroactively, when that happens, go back and say, hey, I wanted Shedeur to start from the beginning, but he didn't. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to me, is what I think Shedeur Sanders is. And he may not be as talented as Cam Ward, and obviously as a Titans guy, I want Cam Ward to be a better player and do well, but I have always said I think Shedeur Sanders has the ability to be a very middle-of-the-road, maybe tier 3 starting quarterback in the NFL, very similar to a guy like a Derek Carr, or a guy. I think that Shedeur Sanders in the right system could be as good as a guy like Jared Goff. Like, I don't think that that's insane, and my guy Spencer from Locked On Browns, that was his point as well, is what people see and expect from Shedeur Sanders now has gone so low to a point where we're not being realistic about what his talent can do.
They're in a win-win situation right now, as I've talked about, because you have a player that you got in the 5th round that was probably more so a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and you get to just see what he becomes. And I don't here's the thing. Will other teams live to regret it? Maybe. There's certain teams that certainly won't care. Like the Buffalo Bills of the world who have Josh Allen, the Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs of the world who have Patrick Mahomes. I'm sure the Eagles feel like they're just fine with Jalen Hurts. Like there's plenty of teams that have the quarterback position figured out right now that aren't necessarily worried about that. But for some of these teams that don't have quarterbacks or have been looking for quarterbacks for a long time, sure, I can subscribe to the idea that they might live to regret it at some point. I do believe in my heart of hearts that Shedeur Sanders is going to become a viable quarterback in this league. Like I think he could be I don't know if he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, but I think he could be a fringe top 10 guy. Like I think he could be in that next group of like 11 to 15, which is kind of where the Browns were with Baker Mayfield, right? And if that's the type of quarterback he's going to be, I think he carves out a nice NFL career for himself, and he can be a solid starter in the NFL and make a team successful, go on and compete in the playoffs, go on and win playoff games and win the most important time of year. I think all that can be true.
See, I think it could be true too. And for me, you need to get on that right now. Like we talked about Dillon Gabriel. I said it after the draft. I still believe it now. The Browns coach and general manager overdrafted Dillon Gabriel as a way to say we can't draft Shedeur Sanders because they were scared that they were going to lose their job. As I said the last time we talked about this, I think they were scared of Dion taking that job. So that's really the start of the fear for these general managers, not social media and the attention they'll get. It's losing their job. That's what really motivates people, Ross, is they don't want to lose their money. Like that is, so 100%. If you want to find motivation, go to the bank account or go to the heart. Okay. Those are the two places you go. But for me, there's no way you can look at Dillon Gabriel, like you said, that's a Prius. That's a Pinto. We talk about Shedeur Sanders maybe not having great athletic gifts. Dillon Gabriel is even less than that. He's even smaller to the point there are beat reporters for the Browns like, I'm taller than him.
I'm taller than him.
Bad on you for doing that. Right. That was a bit performative in my opinion.
That was a bit much.
But regardless of that, I just think we can't play this game any longer. Let's not be dumb. If they had a good veteran quarterback that made sense, even I would understand. But Flacco, we saw, is not the 11-5 Flacco that the Browns had a couple years ago. They need to get Shedeur Sanders going, and at minimum, find out that he is truly not as good as people think. And then you can move on from the quote-unquote circus or whatever you want. But I think that the Browns have backed themselves into a good thing, and them denying it and trying to push it as far away from them as possible is so classic Browns. You have a gift. You were given a gift, and you don't even want to unwrap it. They're just, it's just mind-boggling to me that somehow, some way, I'm agreeing with the Browns owner, and that should just probably never be a thing. But him making them draft Shedeur Sanders, if that's what happened, was the right move.
Right. 100%. And here's the thing too, like you have to start, like there's no way that you can tell me that a well-developed Shedeur Sanders is worse than Joe Flacco in 2025. Right. Like you're not going to convince me of that. I'm sorry. But if you don't dedicate the time and resources to developing Shedeur Sanders because you're playing this game with him and Dillon Gabriel, then you're going to miss the opportunity to get him to that point. You know what's going to happen? You're going to end up trading him later on down the road. And just like Baker Mayfield, he's going to go and become a competitor and a contender somewhere else. So take advantage of what you've got while it's still in the building. The Browns should not screw this up.
Yeah, and who develops quarterbacks better than Kevin Stefanski? Like, I know Deshaun Watson didn't work out, but he gets the most out of quarterbacks. He's a good quarterback coach. Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, Sean McVay, those are guys that certainly deserve a seat at the table. But at the end of the day, it's a good coaching situation for Shedeur Sanders to get a well-developed version, which I agree. I do think that's as good, if not better, with more potential than Joe Flacco. But let's talk about the quarterback that went number one, which I can't believe I'm making the same sin as the rest of the media. Cam Ward always getting pushed to the back. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, like I said earlier, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every single night there are highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't-miss comebacks, whether it's a game-winning shot, Tyrese Halliburton is going crazy, or a breakout player, Andrew Nemhard, looking at you. There's never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I am personally gonna ride with Indiana. I wanted the Knicks to win, but I don't know if you can come back from that heartbreak that we just saw in game one. The money line for Indiana on the road, taking the spread, whatever you want. I think the Pacers look like they have a good run to the finals here, even if I still do want the Knicks to win. Either way, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Ross, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about Shedeur Sanders. We both agree he should start for the Cleveland Browns, and if he doesn't start week one, there needs to be a plan to get him in there as soon as possible. But now I want to talk about the quarterback that actually went number one overall. But again, somehow, despite it being sort of clear to us who the best quarterback to play is, these teams want to fool around and play games, and my lord, the Tennessee Titans are trying to play a little bit of games. At least that's what the public perception is right now. Cam Ward has come in, and I can tell you he's been impressive. But if you don't want to believe it from me, then believe it from our guys over at Locked On NFL Draft, where Damian Parson talked about how Cam Ward has impressed at rookie minicamp and OTAs.
One of the rookies that have a lot of pressure on him, in my opinion, Keith. For number one, you're the first overall pick. That's just the nature of the situation, right? You're a quarterback. You're expected to come in and change the tide. You're in a division where 2 years ago we saw a young man in that same division, C.J. Stroud, take a team from being worst to first and get him into the playoffs. So it's a lot of different pressure. Warren Moon comes out and unretires his Hall of Fame retired jersey and numbering to give it to you. He's got a lot of pressure on him. And then looking at what he's done through camp, some of the things that's been said about him. I watched some of the clips and everything, the reps he's taking at practice. Mechanically, he looks good. Of course, everything with a grain of salt. There's no defense. There's no D-line. There's no pads. I mean, granted, if there was pads, you can't touch the quarterback anyway. They're in the red jersey. But so far, so good for Cam Ward.
And look, Damian is correct, and especially as he got integrated with the veterans, multiple veteran players coming out saying that he knows the playbook, he commands the huddle already, gives the team energy. We can feel, the way he moves on the field, this and that. So a lot of people are asking me, why is everyone saying that he's in a quarterback competition with Cam Ward or with Will Levis? Why is the head coach out there in the press conference saying everyone's getting even reps? And you got Adam Schefter tweeting, the Titans are giving even reps to Will Levis. You know what you're doing, Adam Schefter. Okay, Ross, I'm just going to cook for a second. You tell me, as a man who is inside the NFL, if this makes sense. So what the Titans are doing is they are trying to not let Will Levis's value drop too much. If you continue to say Will Levis is going to be our backup or Will Levis is getting even reps, we still believe in Will Levis. Whether you like it or not, and a lot of Titans fans don't like to hear it, that does artificially keep Will Levis's value high than if you said, Cam Ward's our starter, we don't know about Will, we're going to try to find the best situation for everybody. But no, let's just, hey, we still believe in Will Levis. They're getting even reps. They're going to battle. It's going to be a quarterback. Competition's better for everybody. That is all just in an attempt to find a new home for Will Levis, because you don't draft Cam Ward number one overall. Like Damian said, bring Warren Moon out to Tennessee to unretire his jersey and roll the red carpet out for Cam Ward. You don't do all that and then have an open quarterback competition with Will Levis. Brian Callahan, while saying they have even reps and they're splitting reps evenly, literally said in his next breath, but that'll probably change next week when we get into phase 3 of OTAs. So this is something that if you're on the outside and you're hearing this, you're reading this, you're seeing Adam Schefter tweet, you're like, what are the Titans doing? But the truth is, behind closed doors, we all know Cam Ward's going to start. He's the answer. And Will Levis will likely be on another roster by the time the season starts. Does that, from an outside perspective, as someone who knows the NFL, he's the mastermind after all, more than I do. He knows the gears and the workings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. Look, it's a business, right? It's a business.
Yeah.
And in every business, you want to keep every one of your investments at the highest ROI possible, right? You want to get your return on those investments. And sometimes you get that return by putting them on the field in your jersey. Sometimes you get that return by having them go elsewhere and return something from another team so they can put on another team's jersey. There's a lot of different ways this all plays out. Here's the other little piece of this too, Tyler. You never know what's going to happen. as an
Right.
NFL team. You can go and draft that number 1 overall selection anytime that you want, but are they ready to hit the field week 1 comes down to a lot of different factors. I'm here in New Orleans. We have voodoo all over the city, so I'm not going to specifically reference anything that might end up being of detriment to Cam Ward. I'm not doing that out of respect for the young man. But I'm just saying you never know. And so if at any time or any situations where you have to turn to Will Levis and say, hey, buddy, we're going to need you to ride this out for a little while with us, you don't want that guy to feel like you have no confidence when you go to him and ask him that. If you keep him alive in a competition for a little while, regardless of how fictitious it feels, regardless of how manufactured it might feel, whatever, if you're genuinely finding ways to leave the door open for him or have him feel that the door has been left open for him because you're giving him the respect of not eliminating him from the conversation, because you're giving him the reps in practice, whether they're even or at least you're giving him enough reps to keep everything fresh. If you're giving him some of those reps with the first team as opposed to like siloing him entirely with the second team, all of that is confidence building. And you want that guy, in case you ever have to turn to him, to have that level of confidence in you, and you want him to feel like you have a level of confidence in him, that you're not just turning to him because, hey, this is our last ditch effort, we don't really trust you, but this is our only opportunity, and instead turning to him and saying, hey, we trust you, we believe you can do this, let's go and win some games while this other situation gets taken care of, whatever that looks like. And so I think that it's a little bit of a there's multiple situations here. You want to keep the interest and you want to keep the value high in terms of the perception outside the building, but there's value in keeping the perception high inside the building too.
No, I agree. And if you think, I've been making this argument all along that Will Levis was viewed as the team's future for a year and a half.
Right.
There are players in that locker room who went to war for Will Levis and who like Will Levis and who went fishing with Will Levis and Cabo with Will Levis. Like people who generally as a person like him. Like that's my friend. Will Levis is my friend, you know? And I think those sort of things don't creep into people's mind because we see these players as, you know, things on a spreadsheet or players in Madden, and none of these interpersonal things ever matter to us, and we never see them. You know, we never see Will Levis and Peter Skoronski, you know, knucksing over a game of ping pong in the locker room or having beers at 2 a.m. on an all-season night. Like, we never see any of that stuff, so we don't know. So I think that treating Will Levis properly, like you're saying, creates currency in the locker room of like, hey, we're competing. We're not just going to discard you and treat you bad like that. But I would also say this. Malik Willis played his absolute best after an offseason with Brian Callahan, and then the Titans got a 7th-round pick back for Malik Willis. Now, they probably would like to redo that, maybe just have Malik Willis as their backup right now with Cam Ward. Boy, that would be a good pairing, schematically speaking. But the point is, overall, even in the preseason, you want Will Levis at his best in the if you want to get a trade for him, then you need him at his best, and treating him like dirt and raising up Cam Ward, probably not going to get the best out of Will Levis, even if you intend to get rid of him. So those are all great points as well. But there are other rookie quarterbacks out there who are very interesting. Tyler Shough probably going to get a chance to play. We'll ask Ross about that. But what about Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart? A lot of rookie quarterbacks, a lot of intrigue. It's Locked On NFL. All right, Ross, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. Do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. As training camp gets closer and moves are still being made, host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. But, Ross, when you're looking at rookie quarterbacks, we talked about Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, the two most interesting ones, in my opinion, and then there's a little bit of a gap. But the only guy, in my opinion, in that next tier is Tyler Shough, because he's the only guy with a real chance, in my opinion, to start week 1 out of Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shough. That's the only guy who I think has a real chance to start week 1. So you tell me, as a man inside, does it, with no veteran additions, we listened to your clip yesterday on Locked On NFL, no Aaron Rodgers for the Saints. They don't seem interested in veteran quarterbacks, as you were saying. So out of these young guys, and now Jake Haener has an injury. He's going to be out a few weeks. I didn't think that he was the front runner in any way either. But now it's just down to Shough and Rattler. Shough is their guy, the new regime. Do you think that he has the best odds to be the starter?
I absolutely do. I think Tyler Shough will be the week 1 starter for the New Orleans Saints in 2025. And that's not a shot at Spencer Rattler, who I think is remarkably talented, has matured so much. This moment, this moment is not too big for Spencer Rattler. So I want to make sure that I mention that. This is about the fact that Tyler Shough is Kellen Moore's pick. This is his hand-picked quarterback. They walked into the NFL draft with a sneaking suspicion that something might happen with Derek Carr.
Right.
And in the second round, for the first time in the franchise history, they used a second-round pick on a quarterback. For the first time in over 50 years, they drafted a quarterback in the first or second round. The last one they did in the NFL draft was 1971, Archie Manning. They did a 1988 supplemental selection that cost them a first-round pick, but not the same thing. So this is the hand-picked quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. I think that if Spencer Rattler wants to win the competition, because there will be a competition between the two, it's not going to be a fair fight. If you ask me, there's going to be somebody's going to have some lead in their gloves, and it's Tyler Shough. But if Spencer Rattler wants to win, he has to win outright. Ty will go to the runner, and the runner right now is Tyler Shough.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would say put it in another sport analogy. You got a corked bat for Tyler Shough, and the only way that Spencer Rattler is going to win is he's got to strike him out. He just can't let him make contact. So I'm with you there, and that makes sense. And listen, they wouldn't be taking Tyler Shough so high if they believed as much in Spencer Rattler. So it's obvious where they're going to lean. I guess my question then becomes, what should we expect from Tyler Shough then? Because the Saints are probably going to say they want to be a competitive team. I'm bullish that they're not going to be a great team this year, not just because of Tyler Shough, because I think the rest of the roster has taken a little bit of a step back from what it was a couple of years ago. So what would your expectations for Tyler Shough be then if he is the day one start?
Yeah, I think what I'd say about the rest of the roster on Tyler Shough is that it's almost the one of the biggest issues is that it's almost the exact roster that it was 2 years ago, except with a few changes,
right?
Right?
Just older now. Yeah.
Right. So it's exactly right. And so, they have this big influx of this 9-person rookie draft class, but how long is it going to take for that to have an impact? If it has an impact is all. As we know, the NFL draft is a crapshoot. You never really know. I think that what you should expect from Tyler Shough is competent play. That's it. That's all that you need. This is the second year of Bryce Young treatment, right? This is you don't have to come in here and turn the franchise around right away. It's a rookie head coach. It's a rookie quarterback. It's an ever patient organization, sometimes to a fault. No one's going to be in a rush here if the Saints win. I think I predicted them to win 6 games this season, like at their best. And so, but that's not going to result in massive changes of the coaching staff or massive changes at quarterback potentially going into next year if they just simply get competent play out of their quarterback. And so I would expect Tyler Shough, if he starts week 1, to set the all-time franchise record for rookie passing, because it's only 1,317 yards. It was literally set by Spencer Rattler in 6 starts last year. And so that's crazy. That's what this franchise is. Like, this franchise is always kind of won with its free agent quarterbacks in the modern day, right? And so that just kind of goes to show you that. So I would expect that Tyler Shough does that, but like 2,500 passing yards, a 2-to-1 touchdown ratio, if you can get there, and completing more than 65% of his passes would be a stellar season for him in terms of his first year, with an opportunity to continue to build from that point. I think those metrics, those stats, if he can hit that, if he starts week 1, if he can hit all of those things, that guarantees him 2026. If he struggles, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Saints go back to the pot, depending upon where they're selecting in the 2026 draft for another quarterback.
Yeah, they did. That's the thing about second round quarterbacks like that, is you're not so committed that you can't move on. It doesn't look as bad publicly as, like the Kyler Murray situation, which ultimately looked good. The Cardinals made the right decision there with Josh Rosen, but still at the time, it's going to be looked at a certain way. It's funny that you mentioned all that stuff, because I did an episode talking about Cam Ward's expectations, and it was 65% completions. If he could throw 22 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 3,400 yards, let's just be solid. You know what I mean? And that's generally what we should be thinking about for all rookie quarterbacks. Just look like you belong, and there's something to build on there. The other 2 rookie quarterbacks that I want to mention, though, Jackson Dart in New York, Jalen Milroe in Seattle. Now, Dart has Winston and Wilson ahead of him, quote unquote. Whereas in Seattle, I think other than Sam Darnold, who's the presumed starter, Jalen Milroe could probably beat out anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind, which one of those guys do you think has a better chance of starting the most games this year, Dart or Milroe?
I'm going to go with Jackson Dart in this one. I think Jackson Dart has the ability between those two to start the most games. The biggest reason why is because of the market. Seattle's market allows you to be very, very patient. You're going to be able to figure things out. If they, Sam Darnold had a great year last year and everything, people are going to be willing to be patient to see if they can get him back to that. Was it Kevin O'Connell? Was it Sam Darnold? All that, like those conversations will happen, but they're not going to progress as quickly as a downturning Russell Wilson that is already going to be championed to be sat in favor of Jameis Winston before the season even begins, because that's the Jameis Winston experience. Everyone loves the dude. Everyone wants to see him on the field, myself included. And then on top of all that, the performance of Jameis Winston doesn't often live up to the hopes of the expectation of Jameis Winston. And so I think that's how you can quickly get to Jackson Dart. I think the Giants are going to have this conversation around them pretty early about Jackson Dart potentially starting for this team, because I don't think they're going to be very happy with what they're going to find that they signed in Russell Wilson.
Jameis Winston is like the opposite of Rain Man. Like,
Right.
Doesn't seem smart, but really, really smart. It's like, Jameis, man, he seems so cool. And then he gets out there and it's like, oh no.
It's just performance. It's almost like a performance anxiety to a point, right? Like if I had to try to quantify it in some way, it's like he knows the game. Like he can sit down and break down everything without even looking
good at media.
Oh my gosh, he's going to be so good there. He already is. And
he could be the football Charles Barkley. He's not as good, but that is what I would say is he could be the football Charles Barkley.
Yeah, and so like I've talked to Jameis and the way that he can. You can give him a play on offense and then give him 3 different looks on defense, and he can roll through every bit of it mentally and tell you all about it. And you can see him seeing it. But then when he gets out on the field, sometimes things look a little bit different or whatever it might be. Maybe the clock gets rushed, whatever it is. The pressure is different. I don't know. But the experience isn't unilateral in terms of what he does, what he's able to do mentally versus what he's able to do physically. And then sometimes he's on physically and everything. And then so you're like, oh man, this is great. And then the next game it's not there. And so I just don't think that the New York situation right now, and here's the other thing, Mike McDonald's job is not in trouble. Brian Daboll, Joe Shane's, their jobs are in trouble. So get to the rookie quarterback quickly, because if you lose with the rookie quarterback, there's an excuse. If you're losing with the veterans, you're cooked.
That is literally where I was going next, is I agree with you. And it's literally because Jackson Dart may save Brian Daboll's job even if they don't win. Like, you don't have to win with a rookie quarterback for you to do a good job. That's just the reality. And also, Milroe needs more develop. Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe are both development projects. Like, they really both do need development. But Milroe is considered far more of a development project. And I mean, look at where they were drafted. That doesn't always mean it's right. Like, Malik Willis may be better than Kenny Pickett, and Malik Willis was drafted, 60 picks later. It's not that crazy. So I think Milroe needs way more seasoning and you're right with the job security and all of that. I can't help but when you say you could see Jameis's mind going through it, like, his eyes are like projector screens. Like, you could see literally his mind churning as he's like going through his soliloquies and things of that nature. But anyway, I always know, Ross, when I get to a word like soliloquy, that I've gone off the rails, and that's enough for us today. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Mastermind, Ross Jackson. As I tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in, and stay safe out there.